Blog Talk Radio.
My back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me. I'm reminded every day of the past and how I hurt you. I wish that time was something I could undo. I don't deserve you, but now I see the only thing that really mattered was you and me. You made me whole. Why did I run? Why did I push away my one true love? If I could go back and change the past, I wouldn't take you for granted. I'd make things last. You're the only one. You're all I think about. I don't know why it took so long to figure it out. I searched so hard for what I had in you, but now I'm back where I started and I'm asking you for forgiveness for the things that I've done, because I know when things got rough I used to run. Thought I could handle life all on my own, but at rock bottom I was all alone except for you. You never left me, I only left you. When you accept me, you can change me. I know you can because you made me, and you have a plan. God forgive me. I know I've done wrong, but now I'm back again where I belong. I want to tell the whole world I finally found what's true, and that I've changed my ways, and it's all because of you. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me. I'm sorry, Lord, for all the things that I've done. I know I've acted like the prodigal son. It's like I wanted my inheritance now, and just like him, I was much too proud. I tried to serve two masters, and in the end, it wound up a disaster. I served myself instead of you, my own God. Thought I could make my own truth, my own laws. It seemed the more I tried to run and hide inside, I realized that I was living a lie. A backsliding Christian, living like a heathen, breathing in the types of things that invite demons. I was deceived by my sin and my pride, and my jealousy and envy and greed deep inside my soul. Had no direction or path. I was in search of something that I used to have. A foundation from a Christian home, and unconditional love that my family had shown me as a young child. I want that smile again. I want that joy and peace that I had within. And just like Psalm chapter 127, I wanted in sin, but now I'm back again. God is merciful, you're not alone. A shepherd seeks to bring his lost sheep home. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you've always loved me. When I was gone, you were still with me. When I was lost, you cared for me. When I turned my back, you never left me. And even though I've done wrong, you always loved me.
As little as long ago, or as far away as forever, this is where we meet to celebrate what never was as it comes to pass. Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, viewers from across America and around the world. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. It's a Sabbath broadcast. It's May 4th, actually, 2013, and we've quickly moved into spring, and I don't know where the weather is as far as where you are in part of the country, but it's been a very cool spring here in Georgia, and it's been raining for the past week and a half, but it's still a beautiful time of the year, and it's I'm glad that we're actually getting some rain because it's keeping down on the pollen and the thick yellow that seems to cover everything from the release of the blooms and the way that spring cycles upon itself and has all the flowers regenerating themselves. It's a really beautiful time of the year, especially here in Georgia, because we do have so many flowering trees and bushes and shrubs and so I hope that wherever you are at, that you are finding a blessed and joyful and healthy, and that you're in good well-being, and that you are able to enjoy the peace and serenity that has been maintained, thankfully, and God willing. I know that at some point, there is that, especially with all that I've been speaking about in the end of days, it does speak about how there is perpetual peace and then comes sudden destruction. And I pray, that we get to share as much of that as we can, and that whenever that is going to occur, whenever that does come, that, at least most people will be spared the misery of the impending doom. But at least we have another day of reprieve to where we can just honor and celebrate the Father and Son and just be grateful, thankful for another day of routine, and where we can share the truth with our friends and fellow seekers. And I give all gratitude, all thanksgiving to the Most High for you and for your fellowship, for the dialogue, for the sharing of testimony, and for the time that we have to come together and to share revelation and to share whatever it is that we may be learning in our different pursuits, because so many of us have been called together as fellowship, and we seem to love one another like family, but we are all living disjointed lives, and we're all from different parts of the world. We have listeners from all over the world that join us in this broadcast, and even though I know that a lot of you don't come into the chat room and don't catch us live, that even as part of you that catch the show later and that listen to the archives and that upload the broadcast to your iPods and to your iPads, and also all the little different our mobile phones, all the different means of listening to the broadcast. It's such an amazing time now, because for me to be able to be here in Georgia and to broadcast from the East Coast of the United States and to reach all of you whom I may have never even had a chance to meet, and that we've never even come face to face, and that we remain largely anonymous to each other, although we do share emails and share instant messages with one another, and we've come to know each other in that way. And many of us are part of the same truth gathering fellowships, the groups on Facebook, and many of you have joined fallenangels.tv and joined the Truth Network there, and I've come to know you through that website. But a lot I've never had a chance to meet face to face, and so it's an awesome blessing for us to have the tools that we have in this day and age to be able to reach each other and communicate with one another, and to affect one another's lives in the way that we do, and to be able to share instantaneously over thousands of miles and over the wide expanse and the broad reach of the oceans and the mountains, which have kept so many people separate and disjointed for long periods of our history, for us to be able to bridge all that in just a moment with just typing an email and sending it in seconds to people from all different parts of the world. It's such an amazing blessing, and I give all gratitude to the Father and Son for the tools that we have access to, and for the means of communication, and the means of sharing what has come to be a ministry, so to speak, even though I do not consider myself to be a preacher or a prophet or an apostle or anything of the sort in any kind of way, and I don't consider myself as having authority over anyone else as far as discernment or what is taught to us in the gospel and the word. I'm a fellow truth seeker just like you, even though I have been doing these broadcasts since 2008, and I have shared the things that I've come to know, but I'm just a regular, normal kind of human being, that goes, even though I'm dedicated to Scripture and the study of it more so than a lot of people that I know. But I know that a lot of you that listen to our shows, that you also are dedicated to the kingdom, and that you put our Father and the Son as high priority in your life, and that serving them has become one of the things that you have most dedicated yourself to. And for that, I honor each of you in your pursuits and in seeking the kingdom first. And I'm grateful to know you in the capacity that I do, because we are unusual. We are very different than what is the norm. The masses, which are mostly committed to life and money and their jobs and materialism, and to the accumulation of wealth and things, and more apt to seek pleasure and entertainment than anything that has anything to do with of a spiritual nature. And so, I honor all of you out there for that as well. And I consider you as a very wise group, in that you have done your homework. You've come to discernment on a lot of the secrets that most people do not know about. And it is a sad thing. As you say in the chat room, how so many people aren't committed in that way to their eternal inheritance and to having a relationship with the Father and the Son in such a way that that we are intimate with them, because you can have a dialogue and a relationship with the Creator and His Son in such way, and most people don't consider that as even a possibility, but it's very true. Those of us that have come to know the Father and the Son in an intimate manner, anybody, we are not privileged in any way. Anybody out there that truly yearns and seeks with a diligent and in an earnestful way relationship with the Most High, He's absolutely waiting for you, and has been for a long, long time, has been waiting on the world really to change its ways and to seek them in persistence and in a way that is real, because they want to have direct relating with us. Like the song that I just played from Destiny Lab, it's called Prodigal Son, and it's based on the parable of the prodigal son, and how most of us have gone off and become wayward and lost within the world and enveloped with the desires and the lusts of this carnal and this fleshly world. And it's only, after having not found the answers and having not been fulfilled in a way that is real and true that we've been brought full circle, that we've come back to seeking of the divine. And so I appreciate all of you joining me. For those that did not get a chance to listen to the show that I did with the hijacker this past Wednesday, in that show I ended the broadcast with what I thought was a very important piece of the puzzle and a piece of information that was released by Steve Quayle in one of his Q file alerts. And so I want to begin the show with that. And I'm not going to read the entirety of the dialogue because I don't want to take up too much time with it, but I think it's very important. And I was asked by Gator, one of the people that called in on that show, and the hijacker, there was a number of call-ins, and I asked them to comment on what I had read, and they were greatly affected by the information that I brought forth, and I think it's very relevant. And so I'm going to rebroadcast that portion, even though it won't be from the show. I'm going to read it live so that you will have the information. But I am going to put a link to the full summation of what I'm about to go into for those that want to read it in its entirety and to study and look at it for yourself. For those that have access to the chat room, I'm posting the link right now. You can save it to look at and to read for yourself after the broadcast. I definitely recommend everybody look into what was released in this particular alert. It's very relevant. And I'm going to cover just the highlights. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read the most important aspects of it. And so you will know what it is I'm going to go into, and it will set up what we are going to go into as far as I'm going to be looking into two different texts today. They're both from the Apocrypha. One is called the Wisdom of Solomon, and the other one is called 2nd Esdras, Esdras, or, and I have links for those two, and I'll post them when I get to them. But like I said, they are part of the Apocryphal books. They were in their original format, in the original canon, that they were part of the original 80-book canon that was released as the Old and the New Testament. And that it was only later, when the Apocrypha was stripped out, that they became part of what are known as the hidden books, those 14 books that were taken out to make the 66-book canon that most King James Version of the Bibles continue to use and that most people are familiar with. It's Esdras 2. The second Ezra is also known as 4 Ezra, Ezra, Ezra 4, the fourth book of Ezra. And so I'm going to be reading, and again, I'm not going to read the entirety of those texts either. I'm just going to highlight some things, some of my most favorite passages, and those things which are related to our series, the series that we've been studying for the past few Saturdays on the end of days, where I've been bringing out the most relevant passages about the end of days from all of the different apocalypse texts, which there are many of them. Most people aren't aware of that, but there are a number of different like the Apocalypse of Paul, the Apocalypse of Peter, Apocalypse of Daniel, the Apocalypse of Zephaniah, the Apocalypse of Ezekiel, and Apocalypse of Elijah. There's a lot of these texts that are considered pseudepigraphal or apocryphal or part of the extra-biblical books that not a lot of people have heard about, that do detail and that add to the study of what I consider, the broad scope, the study of the end of days. And the reason I've done this series is because you have not heard about, and so many people get lost in their study on Revelation. They don't exactly understand it. They've not read these other different books to where you get extra information and you get more details on the possibilities of what the metaphors and the parables of Revelation are actually citing. And so for those that have not listened to the previous shows in this series, I would definitely recommend you revisit some of the, and to listen to those broadcasts. And you might want to get a pen and paper so that you can write down the titles of these different texts so that you can go and study them in their fullness if you have the time. Because I consider all of them relevant to, the serious student of prophecy and those that are wanting to know more about the end of days. All right, we're going to begin with this particular alert, and just to give you an idea as to what I'm going to be going into, this was an investigator. He is a geneticist, and he was studying about the differences, if there were any differences, between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent as far as genetics, DNA. And one of his friends that was studying this information originally was killed for looking into this information, and he passed on all of his research and his investigation to one of his friends. And so his friend is now trying to make sense of the results and the research that his friend had done prior to his death. And so that's where we're going to pick up the story. He has received the information, he's been looking into it, and now he's contemplating the profoundness and the implications of what this research means for those that know that there are two different lines on this particular planet, that there are, the wheat and the tares, the sheep and the goat. They actually represent peoples, lineages, bloodlines, the seed of Cain and the seed of Seth, or the seed of Adam, the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, as cited in Genesis 3:15 with the enmity, where the father told the serpent, the Nakash of Genesis chapter 3, that he was now going to put enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And this will help explain why we have perpetual war on this planet for those that still do not understand that we are not all of one race. Even though we're, one human race, there's two different bloodlines here. And it's important to understand this because without this knowledge, you just don't understand why it is that, war and why it is that this particular bloodline has been warring against the seed of the woman or the seed of Adam for so long. And they've remained in the dark. They've kept themselves hidden until this time, because this knowledge is getting out there. And Christ in chapter 13 of Matthew, he says that this is one of the secrets that has been kept hidden since the foundations of the world. And he said that in that chapter also, he said that was one of the things that he was bringing forth, is that he was going to disclose the secrets that had been hidden since time immemorial. So this will give confirmation to all of the parables of Matthew chapter 13, where Christ speaks about the enemy sneaking into the garden and sowing the tares, and how it is, and that Christ cites that the devil is the one that sowed all of the tares, and that the tares are the children of the wicked one. This will help you to come to fullness on that understanding. All right, beginning with I don't know exactly where it is in that alert, but I think it's about a third of the way down. It says this: on the plane ride back stateside, my friend, who at the time was one of the most knowledgeable DNA researchers on the planet, pulled out the biggest piece of mental jerky I've ever gnawed on. His benefactor, test subject, believed that while most of the sons of Adam had double-strand DNA, he had been told by his family that he and his blood relatives were distinctly different, and that he, like his fathers before him, had triple-strand DNA. He wanted my friend to secretly prove once and for all if this was true or not. The subject claimed that his extended family and their cousins, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings. He'd been taught by his tutors that once upon a time his ancestors had fallen to earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before the garden. He believed that while their ancestral mother was Eve, their ancestral father was not Adam. He was torn to know if a child of Cain was actually genetically different and whether he could be saved. As you know, Senator, the lie is different at every level, and so it was, and so it shall, and so shall it always be. In this life anyways, from the highest thrones in this world and now, here again, right down to the tiniest strands of DNA. It's lies, lies, lies all the way down. The truth is, the so-called third strand of DNA that somehow could make them superior was just another lie from the father of lies. In the end, it was just another lecherous, parasitic, alien hitchhiker on the road of life, trying to deceive the vulnerable into forfeiting their birthright for a bag of magic beans. My friend tried and was trying at the time of his death to determine if there was a way to separate the writhing and gripping entanglements of the demon seed's form from the host DNA without destroying the host. He also speculated on possible ways to identify the reptilian's host who walk among us while living in the grip of the reptilian seed's alien possession. It's all around us, everywhere. They think of us like aliens, but they're the aliens. Don't you get it? They're laughing at us. They think they're the children of space aliens from another world, marooned on this tiny blue orb. They're just doing time till they can figure a way off of this rock so they can get back up to their Death Star moonship and figure out how to fix it and head back home to Mommy. I thought to myself, it doesn't really matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what the lying facts say. It doesn't matter what any technical analyst reveals. It doesn't even matter what the religious sages thought or believed. It only matters what they believe, because our original subject and his relatives, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe and act as though they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings, but not human only, hybrid human, more than human, superior alien humans. One second here. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me and you were having no problems receiving the message. All right, I'm going to continue. Our subject and his kin had been taught by their families and tutors that once upon a time their ancestors had fallen to the earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before the garden. He believed that while their ancestral mother was Eve, their ancestral father was not Adam. They believe that they are our humanoid cousins, superior hybrids, half alien and only half human. They once reigned from Olympus and were pharaohs. Whatever the real truth of their history, their belief is the driver of their actions. Being the true believers, they will continue to operate in accordance with their belief and the laws of alien Darwinian type survival. That's why they interbreed, to maintain the purity of the bloodline. That's why they secretly meet and connive to pass power between themselves. And that's why they must fool the rest of mankind into wars of self-destruction and debt, so that we may be forever enslaved to their lust on this prison planet till death do us part. More than afraid, they know in their hearts this is a fight for survival. The fight for survival. It had begun, just as my friend had said, as a murder investigation, starting with the first murder when the Luciferian demon dad had first whispered of the evil deed to his willing child, Cain. It continued down through time, the sons of Adam fighting for survival and destroying the alien giants in Canaan land, David and the hybrid Goliath and his 4 hybrid brothers, and all the hidden true believers since, hiding in plain sight, so powerful and so important, yet so afraid, because our original subject and his relatives, again, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, They believe and act as though they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings, but not human only. Interchangeably, these earthbound half-cousins of ours continue to laugh, but it is a nervous laugh at that, as they have a joke or two at our expense, recreating their lying father's fall to earth and flashing their heretofore secret gang signs, hand signs to each other, right in our face. I know now how dangerous their beliefs are, because they are being driven by their beliefs, taught to them by their real alleged father, the father of lies. And even now he knows the truth and whispers in his initiate's ear, just as he first did in Cain's ear. The sons of Adam, as long as they live, are dangerous. Now, again, I would recommend people go to that link that I posted in the chat room and to read this when you get a chance in its entirety, because I only highlighted what I thought was the most important aspects. But it's definitely something that one would want to read in its fullness. And for those that may not have understood what the premise of this accounting was speaking about, I'm going to reiterate the story. An investigator, a researcher and geneticist in DNA, had a friend who had one of his friends who was of these particular bloodlines, of these royal bloodlines, these elitist bloodlines that are the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not, but are tied to the tares, tied to the wicked one, that are the children of the wicked one, the children of the devil, from the beguilement of Eve, going all the way back to Genesis chapter 3 with the seduction in the garden in paradise that caused the original fall of humanity from our immortal, bright-natured place of protection and favoritism in the garden of the Lord, and that caused all of us to be cast out and to have to incarnate into flesh form on this planet where we are surrounded by devils and demons, where we are living in a fallen world, where we are taught by the duality of good and evil, and that we are in fallen flesh form, even though we are the sons of God, and that we still have a portion of us, an immortal part of us, that is wearing the flesh, that we're dressed in the flesh for this lifetime, but that we have an inheritance, an eternal inheritance with the Creator and His Son, as long as we come to know the Father and the Son in relationship and live according to the Ten Commandments, that live according to the law as dictated by the apostles, and that we do the works and accept the grace that has been extended to us. That's why we're here in the flesh. That's what this world is all about, and that's what we're trying to come to remembrance on. Now, this investigator, he says that there's a physical difference, that, you know, where they consider the sons of Cain as having this triple strand DNA, that he said that his investigation showed him that the third strand DNA was actually a parasite, like a rider on the DNA that causes these people to be callous, to be insane, psychotic, to not have any compassion for the collective of humanity, but to be selfish in the same ways as their father, Lucifer, Satan, the adversary of humanity, in his selfish drive to find kingdoms to rule of his own, to bring himself to worship, even if it meant deceiving the angels and deceiving humanity, to instill idolatry, to instill religions where children were offered up as sacrifice, where people are cannibalized, where blood is drunk in ritual and ceremony. These are abominations. And we're going to read about some of these abominations when we go into the next text in the Wisdom of Solomon. But just to clarify, the sons of Cain, or the sons of Belial, those that are tied to this particular line, they know about the differences. They know about the bloodlines. They know that their father is the devil, Lucifer, and that is their God. They support the agenda of the New World Order, depopulation. They are the ones that control the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, all these different elitist groups that are dedicated to bringing in world government and destroying the sovereignty of nations. It's this elitist clique, these what are called globalists, these transnationalists. These are the ones that have been warring against the seed of Adam ever since the separation in the garden. And they know who they are. Even though most of the children of Adam are left in the dark and have no idea that there is an evil lineage and an evil people dedicated to evil that care nothing about the collective goodwill of humanity, that only want to see their fellow humans suffer, and that want to accumulate wealth and power and prestige at the expense of everybody else, that will even sell their soul and their birthright and give up their eternal inheritance to serve and to reign as gods or kings and rulers on this particular planet for what time that they have. They know what's going on. It's all of the rest of humanity that has been left in the dark. And that's why it's important for you to know the differences, to know what is being cited in Genesis chapter 3:15 with the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and what Christ is talking about in Matthew chapter 13 with the differences between the wheat and the tares. To know who the enemy is and to know who his children are, because they are busy daily waging war against you and your children, and they are murdering us at every turn of the way in every way they can, whether it's through poisoning the food or poisoning the water or poisoning you through the vaccines and the pharmaceuticals, or even with the air that we breathe, with the chemtrails that they are polluting the air with. None of it makes sense until you realize that we are in a war for our lives, and that they want none of us, as the children of Adam, as the seed line of Seth, they want none of us to inherit those ordinances, the habitation of their first estate that they left and departed from so long ago. They don't want any of the children of Adam to aspire to and to accept the grace of Christ dying on the cross for all of us. And they certainly don't want any of their own kind to leave the obligations and the duty to the New World Order They certainly don't want any of humanity to aspire to a return to the first estate, because they know they're judged and they know that they're excluded from salvation. And they want to take as many of us as they can with them. All right, I know I'm quickly running out of time, so I'm going to let me check the chat room real quick. All right. Well, it seems like we've been joined by a number of listeners, so I appreciate all of you. And thank you for being so kind to one another and for helping each other. If you have any questions, just post them in the chat room. I will definitely try to get to it as I can. But I'm going to go ahead and try to go into the wisdom of Solomon, because I want you to know some of the different things that these people, the seed line of Cain, who they are dedicated to, why the Father and the Son attest idolatry, why they abhor idolatry, why they hate that so many have been deceived into accepting paganism and to worshiping the fallen angels as their gods. I'm going to pick it up from the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12. And I'm going to begin with verse 1. Because in this particular passage, he's going to tell you about some of the things that these people did and still do. Because some of this stuff is still ongoing. Bohemian Grove and the murder of children, the cremation of care ceremonies, all these things are tied to what were ancient practices, the sacrificing of children to Moloch and to the idols of Baal. The whole reason why the Father took Abraham out of the land of Ur when his father Terah was a high priest to Nimrod, and that they performed a lot of these abominable practices. This will give you further insight. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12. For thy immortal spirit is in all things. Therefore, thou dost correct little by little those who trespass, and dost remind and warn them of the things wherein they sin, that they may be freed from wickedness and put their trust in thee, O Lord. Those who dwelt of old in the Holy Land, thou didst hate for their detestable practices, their works of sorcery and unholy rites, their merciless slaughter of children, and their sacrificial feasting on human flesh and blood. The initiates from the midst of the heathen cults, these parents who murder helpless lives, thou didst will to destroy by the hands of our fathers, that the land most precious of all to thee might receive a worthy colony of the servants of God. But even these thou didst spare, since they were but men, and didst send wasps as forerunners of thy army, to destroy them little by little, though thou wast not unable to give the ungodly into the hands of righteous in battle, or to destroy them at one blow by dread wild beasts or thy stern word. But judging them, little by little thou gavest them a chance to repent. Though thou wast not unaware that their origin was evil, and their wickedness inborn, and that their way of thinking would never change, for they were an accursed race from the beginning, and it was not through fear or anyone that thou didst leave them unpunished for their sins. All right, I want to stop here and highlight just a couple passages. Now, he's speaking about the people that were living in the land of Canaan before Moses was led to take out the Hebrew Israelites from the bondage of Pharaoh in Egypt, where they were living under the oppression and the idolatry of that nation. And they were taught to worship the fallen angels, this pantheon of mythological gods that were part human and part other creature. It says right here, thou was not unaware that their origin was evil. Their origin, that goes back to the garden, that goes back to the beguilement of Eve, and that the birth of Cain, that was their origin. And the Canaanite line, they were wicked because they followed the inborn, innate, what was the characteristics of Satan. And so that's what this particular passage is referring to. And it said that these people practiced abominable rites. They murdered children. They ate and drank the flesh of humanity, just like the giants of old, which were wiped out with the flood. And so the wisdom of Solomon, the text, the apocryphal text, they know about the line of Cain as being of the devil, of the wicked one. And Solomon cites it precisely in his text. And so when you read that, you have to have this particular discernment, this knowledge, in order for you to understand what is being written about in completeness within those texts. Continuing, it says, the second part, and their wickedness was inborn. Their wickedness was inborn because they were of the children of the devil. They were of the wicked one. And as far as the end of days, this is the end of days will be the summation, the climax of this war that goes back to the garden with the enmity, and that it also previously goes back to the war in heaven before we ever came into the flesh. It's the same war. When Satan, as Lucifer, rebelled against the Most High and wanted to be as God himself, and 1/3 of the angels joined him in rebellion and insurrection, that was the beginning of the war that led to even the enmity between the bloodlines and the seed lines. And that war will end with what will be the harvest, the second coming of the Son of Man. And so in order to understand the full testimony of the Scripture, the Old Testament and the New Testament, it's necessary to have this discernment. Otherwise, you won't even understand why the Father brought on the flesh, why he spared Noah and his children and began everything anew with them, why it was that Moses and Joshua, when they were sent into the Promised Land, they were told to wipe out every man, woman, and child, why it was that even David and Goliath, why he killed Goliath, and why David and his sons were warring against the other 4 hybrid giants, the giants of Goliath's line. Why Og of Bashan was killed. And all of these, the sons of Anak, they were of this line. That's why it is they practiced idolatry and worshiped the fallen angels. They were their fathers. And so when you have this understanding and you read the word where it may not have ever made sense before, it will completely make sense, and all of the secrets will be revealed for you. All right, continuing. For who will say, what hast thou done, or will resist thy judgment? Who will accuse thee for destruction of nations which thou didst make? Or who will come before thee to plead as an advocate for unrighteous men? For neither is there any God besides thee, whose care is for all men, to whom thou shouldst prove that thou hast not judged unjustly. Nor can any king or monarch confront thee about those whom thou hast punished. Thou art righteous and rulest all things righteously, deeming it alien to thy power to condemn him who does not deserve to be punished. For thy strength is the source of righteousness, and thy sovereignty over all causes thee to spare all. For thou dost show thy strength when men doubt the completeness of thy power. I'm going to skip down to verse 22. I'm only going to cover a little bit more in the Wisdom of Solomon, and then I'm going to go ahead and move into Esdras. So while chastening us, thou scourgest our enemies 10,000 times more, so that we may meditate upon thy goodness when we judge, and when we are judged, we may expect mercy. Therefore, those who in folly of life lived unrighteously, thou didst torment through their own abominations, for they went as far astray on the path of error, accepting as gods those animals which even their enemies despised. They were deceived like foolish babes. I want to highlight this particular passage. For they went far astray on the path of error, accepting as gods those animals which even their enemies despised. Now, what animals are they talking about here? This has to do with the Nakash and with the worship of the feathered serpent, which has been found worldwide in all cultures of the world, in all places of the world. You find the abominable worship of the serpent. Now, there's a passage in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 11 that I'm going to highlight here, but I want to read one more thing. But those who have not heeded thy warning of light rebukes will experience the deserved judgment of God. For when in their sufferings they became incensed at those creatures which they had thought to be gods, being punished by means of them, they saw and recognized as the true God him who they had before refused to know. Therefore, the utmost condemnation came upon them. Now, what Solomon is talking about in this particular passage is how, when Moses brought the people out of the bondage of Egypt, the reason they were left 40 years in the wilderness was because Moses asked the Father, to not kill all of the people that he had freed. And the reason the Father didn't just outright kill them was because of Moses' prayers. But he waited till the idolaters, those who worship not only the golden calf, but they worship the serpent, and specifically the feathered serpent. Why the feathered serpent? Because the feathered serpent is the Nakash, and he was the reptilian being, the shapeshifter which beguiled Eve. and that impregnated her with Cain, who was a hybrid, who was part human and part reptilian. Now, it's important for you to understand this, because when Moses took them out of the land, there was among them, of the children of Ham, a sect that worshiped the feathered serpent, just like it speaks about in Bel and the Dragon, another apocryphal book, where Daniel exposes the worship of the serpent. And in that story, he also kills an old reptilian, one of these dragon gods. And he killed, and it was a living god. It was a living creature that the people of Babylon worshipped. Well, the children of Ham, because those that were the Canaanites, they also worshipped these Nakash, these reptilian beings. And to verify this premise, because what happened is when Moses, took them into the wilderness, there was a time where the Father sent these creatures to attack the children of Ham, and that they were attacked by the very thing that they worshiped. And the Wisdom of Solomon gives insight into what I'm about to go into. For those that want to know more, read in full chapters 11, 12, and 13. I'm only going to be highlighting these certain parts to bring fullness to that story of what happened in the wilderness, and how the Father and the Son sent these Nakash to attack the children of Ham. And it's going to be the same thing at the end of days with the return of the locust army, because they will send again these particular beings to attack and to destroy, to decimate 2/3 of those that are yet remaining on the planet that are not written into the book of life. That as part of the wrath of God, the locust army, the giants, and these reptilian Nakash will war against those that are remaining. And that the people, the idolaters, the Freemasons, the secret societies that worship the Baphomet, and that worship the serpent, that worship the Nakash, that worship Satan and Lucifer, they will be destroyed by the very thing that they worship, just as the children of Ham were during the time of Moses. We always have in the scriptures things repeating, episodes being repeated, just like as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. We have episodes often repeating. And the locust army will be, at the end of days, the release of the locust army, it will just be a repeat of what has already happened. That's why it says there is nothing new under the sun. And so I'm going to highlight a passage from the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 11. It says this: in return, and this is verse 15, for those that want to look it up. Verse 15. In return for their foolish and wicked thoughts, which led them astray to worship irrational serpents and worthless animals, thou didst send upon them a multitude of irrational creatures to punish them. Okay? They worshipped irrational serpents. This was the children of Ham. All right, and now Solomon is saying is that the Father sent these creatures to attack them. Thou didst send upon them a multitude of irrational creatures to punish them, that they might learn that one is punished by the very things by which he sins. For thy all-powerful hand, which created the world out of formless matter, did not lack the means to send upon them a multitude of bears or bold lions, or newly created unknown beasts full of rage, or such as breathe out fiery breath, or belch forth a thick pall of smoke, or flash terrible sparks from their eyes? Not only could their damage exterminate men, but the mere sight of them could kill by fright. All right, so in this passage, Solomon is saying that the Father did not lack the power to send, if he wanted to, bears or bold lions, any kind of normal natural creature against the children of Ham for their idolatry and for their wicked ways. But instead, he sent these reptilian beings against them because they worshiped them, and that they were punished by the exact thing which they were in sin because they worshiped them as gods. And notice at the very end of the passage that this links also to Revelation chapter 9, where it gives a description of the locust army at the end of days. Because it speaks about their capacity to breathe fire. And that, remember, as in Medusa and the Gorgons in Greek mythology, how, and even Credo Mutla, he gives description of Jabalon, who is the king, or Satan, who is the king of these reptilian beings, how with an evil eye he can kill men by fright. And how Medusa was spoken of, which she was part human and part reptilian, that she was spoken of as having the capacity to turn men into stone from a glance. It's the same kind of phenomena, and we will be dealing with this phenomena, or those that are yet remaining that are not part of, not written into the book of life, and that remain on the earth when the wrath of God is poured out. This is what they will be dealing with. And this also, you can read another, Joel chapter 2 will also give insight into this particular passage. Thank you, Gray. Cairo, I'm going to ask you to, I know you like to teach about the synagogue of Satan, but I'm going to ask you to not focus on, because I don't have time to read the chat room, but I am getting told that you are spreading hateful speech, and that, I've already told you and warned you about this once, and I've asked you to not focus on, because a lot of people, we have brothers that are Jewish and that are Messianic Jews, and that they are also accepting of Christ, and that you can't generalize all Jewish people into being the seed of Cain or the synagogue of Satan, that everybody, it's an individual thing. And I've been attacked for speaking about the synagogue of Satan and those that say they are Jews but are not. But, I'm asking you to, because I'm getting this from a lot of people, and I don't have a chance to read the chat room and what's going on and what's being said, but many people are saying that you are, that you're going to an extreme with it. And so I'm addressing it here right now, and I'm asking you to quit. And that's not even what this show is about. That we have to respect everybody. And I have very good Jewish friends that know the truth and that have accepted Christ. And even if they don't, I don't attack people. I honor them for where they are, and we all should honor people for where they are, and we should try to help each other to understand what is the truth. And so, I don't know exactly what is being said in the chat room, but I'm going to ask you again to not focus on whatever it is you're focusing on, because you're going to turn off a lot of the listeners and a lot of those that are tuning into the chat room. And if you continue to disrupt the shows in such way, then I'm not going to allow you into the chat room, because I don't have time to monitor. And I need to focus on bringing the truth to the people as much as possible. So thank you, Gray and others that have shared your concerns with me. I appreciate that, because certainly, I know about the seed of Cain, and I know that many of you know about the seed of Cain too. You know about the Rothschilds. You know even about the nation of Israel and them having the pentagram on their flag, and that they're controlled by those of Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 that say they are the synagogue of Satan, that say they are Jews but are not, and that even the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, that it is, that was Satan's attempt to place focus on, the Jewish people and to get them to be hated in such way so that people will, blame them as a sect and as a people for all the ills of the world. But we know that Satan and that the organizations, the New World Order, the Freemasons and the secret societies that serve him, they are of every race, gender, and creed, that they wear all masks and represent all peoples. And so you can't focus on one people or one class of people or saying that everything as far as the New World Order and everything that is of evil in the world, you can't blame it on one people anywhere. Even if they are, if Satan parades as being of that one people, because evil wears all masks and all faces and all disguises. So I appreciate all of you again and thank all of you. And I just want to reiterate that, because I have many, many kind-hearted and beautiful friends that know the truth and that follow the faith, and that and even if they haven't accepted Christ as their Savior, we're here to help each other to come to the knowledge of truth. And I pray for them that they will accept Christ as their Savior, and many, many have. And for those that, have come to know the truth, that have been brought out of the other side of it, they become incredible missionaries, incredible testaments of what is truth and what isn't. And so they have absolutely and they've been brought full circle. All of us have. There was a time in my life where I left Christianity and went into atheism, and then went into shamanism, and then went into the New Age, but I was brought full circle back to the truth. And so, anyways, I appreciate all of you. I'm going to try to go into Ezra 2, 2nd Ezra, so we can pick this up. And I apologize, but I thank all of you for, letting me know. All right, let's go into 2nd Ezra. I'll probably have to pick up another show where I can focus a little bit more on some of Second Ezra, but I'm going to read what I can in the 15 minutes that we have remaining. It says this, and this is from chapter 5 of Second Ezra. Then I answered and said, how and when shall these things come to pass? Wherefore are our years few and evil? And he answered me, saying, do not thou hasten above the Most Highest, for thy haste is in vain to be above him, for thou hast much exceeded. Did not the souls also of the righteous ask question of these things in their chambers, saying, how long shall I hope on this fashion? When cometh the fruit of the floor of our reward? And unto these things Uriel the archangel gave them answer and said, even when the number of seed is filled in you, for he hath weighed the world in the balance. Nevertheless, as coming the tokens, behold, the days shall come that they which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number, and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. But iniquity shall be increased above that which now thou seest, or thou hast heard long ago. And the land that thou seest now to have root, shalt thou see wasted suddenly. But if the Most High grant thee to live, thou shalt see after thy third trumpet that the sun shall suddenly shine again in the night, and the moon thrice in the day. And blood shall drop out of wood, and the stone shall give his voice, and the people shall be troubled. And even he shall rule whom they look not for that dwelt upon the earth. And the fowls shall take their flight away together. And the Sodomite sea shall cast out fish, and make a noise in the night, which many have not known. But they shall all hear the voice thereof. There shall be a confusion also in many places, and fire shall be oft sent out again, and the wild beasts shall change their places, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters. And salt waters shall be found in the sweet, and all friends shall destroy one another. Then shall wit hide itself, and understanding withdraw itself into his secret chamber, and shall be sought of many, and yet not be found. Then shall unrighteousness and incontinence be multiplied upon earth. One land also shall ask another, and say, is righteousness that maketh a man righteous gone through thee? And it shall say, no. At the same time shall men hope, but nothing obtain. They shall labor, but their ways shall not prosper. I want to focus on just a couple things here. In this passage, it says that, and menstruous women shall bring forth monsters. Now, in a lot of the passages that I've read about the end of days that speak about specifics concerning what the signs will be for us to know that we are at the end of days and that soon comes the second coming of Christ, it is spoken of many times here where it says that women shall bring forth monsters. And when I mean monsters, I don't mean just, like a lot of people are being affected by the depleted uranium and that they are birthing children in, all kind of strange and awkward fashion that the radiation has affected women. I'm speaking about specifically monsters like giants and like devils, like the giants of old, which in the Keber Nagast in chapter 100, it speaks about how the giants, when they were born to their mothers, they weren't born naturally, that they actually split open the bosoms of their mother and that they killed their mothers in birth. It's the same kind of thing. Because it's my opinion, we have all the abduction phenomenon going on. We have women being impregnated and implanted with these hybrid races and these hybrid children, that even demonic forms are going to be birthed by women who offer themselves up to in ritual ways to mating with the fallen angels, just like during the time of Yared, when the sons of God mated with the daughters of man, and these unnatural giants, these hybrid giants, were born from them. That we are going to be a generation that is going to be witness to all kind of strange things happening, and that even the Hopi prophecies, they speak about the Hopi prophecies. They speak about the return of unnatural and even interdimensional beings taking form in the physical. That all kind of weirdness, came about and began to happen. That we're going to be witness to things that are just totally strange, phenomena which can't be explained on all different kind of levels, and that there are already stories of these kind of things happening. There was recently a story that about a group of trolls, and one of these trolls was actually killed in Africa. He had claw-like appendages for his hands, and he had three, it looked like tails hanging from his head, almost like his hair, and that he was a dwarf-like creature, and that when they followed, because they killed one of them and they followed another one back to a particular cave, that when they went back to the cave, they found a whole group of these particular creatures. There was a story not long ago, less than a year ago, that spoke about how a group of these troll-like creatures went and attacked the nurses at a medical outpost, and how the nurses had to run out and leave their base of operation, and how they refused to go back. And not only were they attacking them, but it was said that they were trying to rape these human women. We know also that there was the Brazilian, I think it was the Peruvian army down in South America. There was a story of by the local people that spoke about a strange bat-like creature, almost like the Mothman, and how at night it would prey on the creatures and the animals in that area, and how the native people spoke about how it was almost vampiric, and that it was trying to drink the blood of even humans, that it was attacking humans in such fashion. Well, the Peruvian army didn't believe the stories, but they sent their army out anyways to protect the people, and lo and behold, they actually shot down this bat-like creature. There's a picture of it on the web. I believe autopsies and DNA and genetic tests are being done on this particular creature, because they did retrieve its body, but it had a wingspan of like 12 to 15 feet, and it was 6 foot tall in height, as big as a man, but it was a bat-like creature. And It's just we have a lot of strangeness, a lot of weird stuff going on in the world. Let me check chat room one more time. I just want to, again, thank all of you who joined us for the show, that listened to the chat room live. I'll go more into 2nd Ezra on a different show and highlight some of that text, because there's a lot of really incredible information within it. And it's also one of the texts that speaks about the return of the dragons of Arabia. It has that quote within it. Actually, let me see if I can find that quote real quick. And then we'll end the show. Here it is. Okay. I'm going to end with this particular passage. I'm going to try to read a little bit before so that you can get an understanding of it. I believe this is from chapter 15 of 2nd Ezra. I'm going to go to verse 24. It says this. Woe to them that sin and keep not my commandments, saith the Lord. I will not spare them. Go your way, ye children, from the power. Defile not my sanctuary. For the Lord knoweth all them that sin against him, and therefore delivereth he them unto death and destruction. For now are the plagues come upon the whole earth, and ye shall remain in them. For God shall not deliver you, because you have sinned against him. Verse 28. Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come, and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them, then these shall be troubled, bled, and keep silence through their power, and shall flee. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them, and in their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings. Behold, clouds from the east and from north unto the south, and they are very horrible to look upon, full of wrath and storm. They shall smite one upon another, and they shall smite down a great multitude of stars upon the earth, even their own star, and blood shall be from the sword unto the belly. All right. Basically, Ezra is describing here in this particular chapter, the dragons of Arabia could be the locust army, but it is definitely something of a supernatural occurrence. And so I'm going to end with this particular quote from Standeo. Listen to this.
A number of things that I've heard from people in the Pentagon, that the buzzword in the secret of secrets in the Pentagon is the Sumerian gods are returning, and that's what they're referring to as that whole area that Peter's.
Wow! Can you repeat that again, just in case anybody missed it? The buzzword
in the Pentagon, in the the military circles that are in the know about the cover-up here, they kind of in whispered tones talk about the return of the Sumerian gods. And they're talking about the what we would call aliens or fallen angels returning into the Middle East, into Old Sumer area.
The Anunnaki.
Well, Could be.
Under the ancient names.
Do you think that has anything to do with why we're in a...
And so you see, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but powers, principalities, the rulers of darkness, not of this world. I thank all of you for coming and joining the show. I appreciate your fellowship, and I pray for you and your families, your loved ones. I pray for your discernment, and continue to seek the Father and the Son in relationship. Do not believe anything that I say, but read this stuff for yourself. Look into the Scripture and get on your knees before them and ask them for confirmation. Ask them for discernment on all these things. In Yahushua, Yahuwah's name I pray. God bless all. Good night.